Hi, I'm Nick Hess. I live at 3109 West Twin Road in Moscow. I have businesses downtown and also apartment buildings. And my comments on this, I feel like this is one of those, I'm agreeing with previous speakers with the Greater Moscow Alliance. I feel like this is a solution looking for a problem. My business on 619 South Washington is a medical building complex. And Mayor Cheney and I go back a long ways at that, working at that location together. And we put a bike rack in there because people kept bringing their bicycles in the hallways. So we have a bike rack. Unfortunately, it would no longer meet the standards for what this does, but it perfectly serves what our use is because it's shoved in behind the mailbox. It's not meant for an overnight thing. It's meant to visit my business or a business in that building. And in my apartment buildings, the other thing is that apartments that have bike racks, I was assisting my rental management company this last year with abandoned bicycles. And we took 26 of these abandoned bicycles to the African Bicycle Project that had to have locks cut off and removed from the bike racks and the rails, and they were shoved in closets and that kind of stuff in the various rental buildings. And I'll tell you that there's only one of those was ever bought in downtown Moscow, because the rest of them were all big box store type bicycles. Point being of that is that they were abandoned, and that nobody cared about it. And the ones that they do care about are safely chained up on the rail in front of the house, irregardless if the bike rack is down in the parking lot or not. And the other ones are stored inside, no matter what we try to get them to do, because of the value of these things that was testified earlier. So I stand only in opposition to this thing because I understand that we want to encourage this kind of transportation and want to make it available so that people have a place to do this. But I don't think it has to be done in a legislated way like this. I really think that the businesses will come up to the point of providing these things when their customers demand it. And I also have a question. I don't know who can answer this for me about clarifications about a couple things that are here. Is anybody able to field a couple question or two at this venue?
We can probably address them subsequent to the public hearing. So if you'd like to just put them out here for the record. Okay.
Well, just for the record, I'd really like to see what is the definition of a rack versus a bicycle space. I don't think that's clear in here. And Mr. Belknap testified what that kind of means, but I couldn't find this thing. And the other thing is, when you go to vote on this, are you going to vote on the amended version or the original version? And I was out on the web today trying to find that. I didn't find the amended version, so I came here with my guns all loaded for a bunch of stuff that doesn't have to happen, which is fortunate. But so that's what I want to make sure that as a public we understand what you're going to be voting for, because I did not find that on the website this morning when I was trying to find these things. So the answers will come later.
Subsequent to,
okay.
Randy?
I think it might be helpful because you are taking testimony in an open hearing. It's be my interpretation that right now there has not been an amendment to the proposal. What you've heard is a report from staff suggesting some possible amendments to what is under consideration. And so all of those things are to be considered during this public hearing because there was no limit placed on it. It'd be my recommendation that if any member of the public has any comment that could either refer to what's currently being considered by the council or what also has been proposed by Bill Belknap as potential changes, then this hearing should include testimony on those.
Okay. The sky's the limit at this point. This is the council will consider all the testimony received tonight, received at the previous council meeting, sent via email, as well as the staff reports on this, and it's the council's prerogative to deal with it as they choose. Okay. Randy, is that?
Yes,
very
that's
good.
correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Does anyone have to load my gun?
No.
Well,
I would appreciate
if you
that.
feel compelled to, I would encourage you to accept all the amendments, but I would also encourage you to table this for the moment until some of these issues can be actually ironed down so that the document that is going to be voted on is very clear and some of these other things are taken into account.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Thank you.
Walter, you have a
Madam
question?
Mayor, point of order. I'm certainly not disagreeing with the city attorney, but the ordinance that is in my packet as tonight's agenda has been legislatively changed to those to fit the comments that Mr. Belknap made to us earlier. So I think when we get to the point of doing anything, the motion will clean this up. but I'm not sure that I would agree that we're only thinking about the ordinance we heard 3 weeks ago. I guess that's a little bit of my confusion, and the city attorney wishes to straighten me out.
Sir Randy?
I hope I didn't say what Councilmember Steve thinks I did. What I hope I said was this, that the current ordinance version that's being considered is the one that was in your packet 2 weeks ago. But there are some proposals by the staff that could be adopted by the council tonight or another time that also may change what the council decides to do when a motion's made. So Walter Steed's correct in that the motion will clean it all up, but it's also true that, as the mayor said, the sky's the limit. It's the topic of bike racks that also can include a discussion of what Bill proposed as a compromise. You're not only considering what Bill said, you're considering what was proposed 2 weeks ago and what Bill said.
In addition to the public input.
Correct.
Are there others who'd like to testify in opposition or provide general testimony?
I'm Noel Bloom. I reside at 3841 Highway 8, Troy, Idaho. We started building apartments in Moscow in 1983, and in 1984 we put in a bicycle rack that was not very big. It was a 24 unit, and it had space for maybe 6 or 8 bikes. I did go by there one time and saw one bike in it. There was just almost no bikes being used, but there was bikes all over the place. They were just being tethered in places where they were convenient for whoever the owner was. So it seemed like that the bicycle rack on apartment houses, if you designate a particular place, they don't seem to be able to be used very well at that particular spot, because the convenience of the owner of the bicycle, they want to have them wherever they want them. Also, I'm kind of against special privileges. It seems like that none of us are against bicycles. I own one myself. I don't ride it very much, but I do ride it occasionally. I like it. But I'm against special things for special people, because I think we're all supposedly created equal in this nation, and we should all have the same treatment. And it seems like we give some special group a special favor when we allow them to ride their bicycles down the sidewalks, or they don't have to abide by certain laws. It seems like that's how it is. And therefore, they have a kind of a special dispensation. Nobody seems to touch them because they're doing their thing, and they're kind of saving the economy and saving the world by not burning up any gasoline. And it just seems like that we do them a special favor, but yet the guy that has the car, he's the actual one that's buying the gasoline to pay the road tax. And they're there, and it just seems to me that it's a special privilege for a very few. I'm not against bicycles, but if you do it, to me, it's an unfunded mandate from the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom.
Good evening, Mayor Cheney. My name is Don Blacketer. I live at 1085 Wallen. We have about 60 apartment units in town here. And I don't want to repeat all the comments, but I would just caution the council to be careful to adding cost to multifamily. And the reason is because if you add cost to multifamily, landlords just have to pass it on to the renters, and typically they're the lower income people. My observations, without too much repeat, are similar. We have apartments, we have bike racks actually, and they're actually fairly conveniently located, and they're not really very used. And about every 6 months we go through and cut the ones that are hung on all sorts of things off, take them down, in our case, to the Hope Center, and have them sold to the students the next fall. Again, our observation is that the people who have good bikes and use the bikes, put them in their apartments. And when it's bad weather, when you might need a cover, they're not going to park them in the bike rack unless they're not worth anything. I just caution you to add cost that is really not needed to our rental people by putting this in, at least put some reason to it in terms of economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Blackadder.
Brent Loney, 2272 Highway 95 North. Madam Mayor, Chamber. Wow.
Would you like us to find you a glass of water?
I may have to.
If we could do that.
I have a couple businesses in Moscow and own numerous single-family and multifamily properties in Moscow. Wow.
He's coming up. Hang on. Hang
Oh,
on,
hang on.
Brent. Thank you, Tom.
That's better. There's a couple things that I'm curious about. One is Section E5 II, change of use of businesses. And if I read through this correctly, I could be afraid that if I were to buy a new property or an existing property or change a property management, I would fall under the requirement to add bicycle racks. Maybe that's my interpretation. It's not clear to me. I know as an electrical company, we own BCL Electric. If a homeowner does a remodel and they don't have adequate smoke detectors to meet the current life safety code, they're required as part of that remodel and permit process to add those smoke detectors. I don't know that a new homeowner who purchases the house has the same requirements. They only have to, if they do a remodel, and they have to get a permit process. And so if I look at this in that light, it doesn't seem fair. I need to add that we've got bicycle racks at the majority of my properties, and as some other people have testified, they don't get used very well. The bikes are chained to the racks right next to the doors, or they're in the apartments. We wish they used them more, and if there's a way to help that, I'm all for it. I'm also all for improving bicycle racks downtown where I think it's the most needed first. I guess that's really it. I mean, the problem for businesses, I can't really speak of. My businesses aren't downtown, and we don't get a lot of bicycle traffic. I've got one on Beach Street, and I've never seen a bike at it. If someone comes with a bike, it's there, but I've never seen it used. So I would really like the council to consider something downtown to help the bicyclists who come downtown to find a place, and then go from there. But bicycles are great. I just think everything needs to be fair, be reasonable, and I think this is a little overreaching in a few areas that I'd like the council to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loney.
Would it be permissible for Bill to speak to 5A II that Mr. Loney brought up, just so while it's on our mind?
Please.
The language that Brent was referring to was the original language in the ordinance regarding a potential change of business, even if it was of a similar use in the initial draft. The proposed amendments would clarify that, would only specify that it would be required in a change of use, and in any case, we wouldn't, under even the previous language, would have interpreted a change of a management company of an existing multifamily as being a change of business. However, the amendments as proposed would help clarify that it would only be a change of use of an individual property, which we would not expect to occur with the residential property.
Thank you. Are there others who'd like to testify in opposition or provide general testimony? And we've already called on Mr. Parks, so get one turn. Others?
Don't I get to oppose the existing ordinance?
Mayor Cheney, excuse me. Is it
Excuse me.
permissible to ask the folks that are coming up questions during the
If they're
public hearing?
if they're willing to do so, sure. It's on the record, so we'll document those as they go along.
Thank you.
Always ask them if they're willing. Please.
Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you. Stephen Hacker, Executive Director of Moscow Chamber of Commerce, and somewhat responsible for some of these problems, so I apologize. I'm here for some general testimony just to clear up a couple of issues, some that were addressed to Mr. Belknap, and also about the actions of the General Board from the Moscow Chamber of Commerce. I did appear before council on January the 18th when this ordinance originally was presented to council and provided some commentary about general concerns about the ordinance and the cost of doing business, and offered an apology, and I've been reminded several times that there were other opportunities to be involved in the process, and we will do a better job of being in that process in the future. After the council decided to table it, it gave an opportunity for Mr. Belknap and I to meet to talk about the ordinance, and that is the nature of some of these amendments that were being proposed tonight. I met with him before entertaining our regularly scheduled general board meeting on Thursday, January the 20th. And we came up with some of the amendments that you see here to make it less burdensome on the existing business community, and also to be less burdensome to eventual developments, whether they be commercial or multi-housing. I went to present these. Anytime that I speak on behalf of the chamber, I'm required to report to the general board my actions. I did so during the general board meeting. At that point in time, they discussed the issue, and I did present the recommendations based on the conversations that I had with Mr. Belknap to the board. At that time, they had a conversation and had what we would consider an open and public meeting based on the bylaws as set forth for our general board, which are the elected representatives of the members of the Chamber of Commerce. At that time, they neglected or decided not to take my recommendations, and in a vote of 11-2, chose to not support the ordinance. But they did want to be very clear that they are supportive of the biking community, feel that through a free enterprise and market system these can be solved, and are committed to doing so, but at this time could not support ordinances that would increase the cost of doing business in Moscow. So I did want to clarify and appreciate Mr. Belknap and his effort to provide that information. As he did change these or put in these ordinance changes, I did forward them to the general board after he gave them to me. I believe it was on the following Monday or Tuesday, and the board was adamant that their position would not change even with the amendments or the changes proposed to the ordinance. They were solid in their position, again, supportive of the biking community, however, could not support an ordinance that would increase the cost of doing business in Moscow at this time. And that's the end of my commentary. I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hacker.
Mayor
Tim,
Cheney,
you had a question?
Sorry, I guess single finger doesn't cut the mustard.
This works better.
Yeah. Mr. Acker, on behalf, I appreciate your comments coming from the chamber, as well as the leader of the GMA. And my question, hopefully not putting you on the spot, was when I was involved with the chamber and these sorts of issues became before city councils, the chamber membership as a whole was typically polled. Back in those days, fax machines were used. Today, I'm sure it's email. And my question to you is, as also would have been to the GMA president, was the general membership of the council polled? And if so, do you know the results?
Yeah, I can answer that question, Councilman Brown. The general board, when I present any time that I speak on behalf of the chamber and take an issue for discussion, has the option, several things. They can do nothing. They can take my recommendations they see fit. They could decide the issue, as they did in this case, by an open hearing and then a vote and a position statement, or they can elect to poll the general membership in order to get a pulse of what they feel is coming from the general membership. Again, according according to the bylaws of the Moscow Chamber of Commerce, that general board is the elected body to represent the member of the Chamber of Commerce, the membership. So they have that option at any time. They can poll the membership. In this instance, they did not. I can only speculate that they felt that both sides of the issue were relatively well represented. The mayor was there to present the position on behalf of the city and the city staff. We did have, again, 2 dissenting votes that do not fully support the position of the chamber, and they felt, again, and this is speculation, that they felt that they had heard the argument and felt that the representation of the general board met the desire of the membership in a democratic process, again, realizing that there would be members that would not support this issue.
Thank you.
So, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hacker.
Thank you.
Others? Testimony in opposition or general testimony?
I'm Brenda von Wondrushka, and I live at 1827 Daves Avenue. I would have liked to support this ordinance as a move towards a greener environment, but the first version of it, I think, I would definitely not support, because the sheltering and the requirement for lighting are certainly not green, and I would think that a green infrastructure mindset would call for natural surfaces to be used. We'd think very carefully about requiring electricity. There is a cost associated and a carbon footprint associated with bringing electricity to a site. There's a cost associated with installing the infrastructure, the component parts of the infrastructure. So if you're trying to think, as I am, in a sense of making the town more green, I think that this ordinance doesn't do it. Also, there have been several comments about the cost to the downtown. There will be no cost to the downtown. The downtown's entirely excluded. And I think putting the burden on new construction of multifamily and commercial buildings is certainly not going to solve the problem, because I don't foresee a huge amount of new construction in multifamily residences coming up in the next couple of years, or of new multifamily units. I think we're pretty much built out. And so I think this is a citywide problem. It's a university problem. It's a town problem. And this ordinance does not go any way towards solving it. So I think what I'd like to see is for you to go back and maybe put it in a different format, maybe not a zoning ordinance, because the zoning ordinance does generally apply to new construction, new uses, and so on, and think about a citywide green solution to the problem of bicycle parking. And, you know, if 10% of the community and 10% of our town is using a bicycle, I think we need to acculturate bicycle users to using bicycle racks, because generally speaking, they don't. So maybe a campaign about bicycle use and bicycle racks, and locating them in the downtown at businesses and in apartment buildings. But this ordinance doesn't do it.
Thank you, Ms. von Wondrushka.